In the wake of the trove of emails that were released today by the House Oversight Committee, um, there were three emails released total. But man, did it cause talk all over the world. There was one email that I found particularly interesting, and it wasn't all the talk about how Trump was involved and Epstein saying Trump was involved. There was a 2011 email between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell calling Trump the dog that hasn't barked and saying that Trump had spent hours at Epstein's house with a victim, which the White House later identified. Caroline Levitt came out and said, yeah, that's Virginia Giuffre. Okay, so I guess they wanted us to know. She came out, was quite public about that, seemed almost proud of it. Okay, the two other emails. There was a 2015 exchange with journalist Michael Wolff about crafting an answer for Trump regarding Epstein. And that's the one I want to talk about. I think it got the least talk, and I think it deserves a little more attention. And there was a 2019 email where Epstein wrote that Trump knew about the girls and had asked Maxwell to stop taking girls from Mar-a-Lago. So that's what that one was about. But let's check this out. This email from Michael Wolff to Jeffrey Epstein. I find this really fascinating for a lot of reasons, and I think Michael Wolff could be in some big trouble. Really, I'm surprised he's on this podcast on YouTube with the Daily Beast every week, which I love to listen to. I love the insights. I love the inside stories. I love the inside information from the White House. Apparently, he has sources there who call him up and tell him things. And those things are usually things that a lot of times we already suspect, but just to get the confirmation that, yeah, it's not just something we suspect, it actually happened, or they're actually talking about this or that, or they're actually worried about, something that they're acting like they're not worried about. It is nice to get that inside information, I have to say. But at the same time, I've always found something that's a little sketchy. Something just doesn't seem right. It seems a little bit off. But let's look at this. He wrote to Epstein on December 15th, 2015, 12/15/15 at 8 p.m. And he said, I hear CNN is planning to ask Trump tonight about his relationship with you, either on air or in a scrum afterwards. So about 4 hours later, Epstein wrote back and said, if we were able to craft an answer for him, what do you think it should be? I mean, Epstein apparently really looked up to Wolf as some kind of brilliant PR strategist. And in the next message, I think you'll find out he probably wasn't wrong to do that. So Wolf wrote him back on the next day at around 4:30 the next day. So he took a good while to get back. But he said, I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Uh, I want to go into each of these things a little more deeply in a minute because the more you kind of ruminate on these things and let them sit around in your mind and think about it, it's pretty interesting what it all means, I think. And then he says, of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. Okay. Now, remember, this was in 2015 at the end of the year in December. It was well known that Trump was running. He had already announced, I think in the summer of 2015, that he was going to run, but no one thought he was going to win. He hadn't, the first primaries hadn't come yet because they didn't come until 2016. So no one knew that he was going to rise and become what he became. But Wolf, even at that time, seemed to be trying to stop him. He seemed to want to destroy him. And this is what, leave a comment. I'm really curious what you guys think. Um, is Wolf going to get in trouble from this? If you think like a dictator, dictators they can't let something like this go once it becomes public. Once it becomes public that a high level, high profile person was at one time trying to destroy the president or the leader or whatever, the dictator, whatever you want to call it, but they can't let that go. they got to stop it. They got to shut that person down and show others that if you try to do this, you'll get shut down like this as well. In different countries, that shutdown takes different forms. In this country, it appears to be taking the form of sicking the DOJ on these people, or getting Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to look for mortgage fraud on these people. Anything they can do to entangle them in with legal troubles. And it shouldn't go without saying that Melania Trump had threatened to sue Michael Wolff recently, which generated a countersuit, or a pre-countersuit, a suit before she was able to file a suit against her for violating his free speech through that threat. So, okay, one thing I'll say about Michael Wolff is he genuinely seems to think Trump is a danger and wants to stop him. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I agree with that. I agree Trump is a danger, and whatever we can do politically to slow him down and make it harder for him to accomplish the things he wants to accomplish, the better. And you could look at this in one or two ways. You could look at this as Michael Wolff, putting himself on the line from the very start to stop Trump because he knew what a danger he would be. Or you could look at it as he's just a conniving person who was happy to hang around Jeffrey Epstein and cozy up to him. And maybe he was in on all the, trafficking and stuff that was going on. Maybe he's just another Alan Dershowitz. You can look at this in two ways. Why was he so close to Epstein? Right? So let's look at the three main parts of this email. He says, I think you should let him hang himself. That's the thing. These types of phrases in this email, that's the kind of thing. I don't see how Trump or the White House could let that stand without responding to it, you know, with some type of legal action, maybe from the DOJ, or, an investigation by the FBI or something. I mean, they'll come up with something. It's not hard if you're lawless and you don't mind, you know, skirting all our laws and traditions. It's not hard to do. But, authoritarians can't let that kind of thing stand, all right? So, but he then says, if Trump says he hasn't been on the plane or to the House, that gives you valuable PR and political currency. And I'm not sure what he meant by valuable PR. It could be, well, one of the big candidates on the Republican side mentioned him and didn't say he was mentioned Epstein, but without saying he did anything wrong. In other words, he mentioned Epstein, but didn't say Epstein was a bad guy or had done anything wrong. So that could give him valuable PR, but it could also give him political currency. Okay. Then he says you can hang him in a way. I mean, Michael Wolff, he sure knows how to play the game. It sounds like a tough guy. He says you can hang him in a way, very conniving. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. Or if it looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. So, in other words, either way Trump answers, whether he's been hanging out with Epstein, Wolff is saying you can get him, you can tie him into a knot, you can shut him down. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates positive benefit for you, meaning that you would look good because you exposed Trump for being a bad guy, which you must not be a bad guy because you're exposing bad guys now. I think that's what he probably meant as a benefit. But if it looks like Trump really could win, and then Epstein doesn't say anything about it and saves him by not bringing anything up, then Epstein generates a debt. Trump is now indebted to Epstein. But what does that mean? What are we really talking about here? We're really talking about blackmail, right? Because what's the debt? The debt is, hey, Trump, I saved you during the campaign. I didn't say anything about everything I know. Now I need you to do me a favor as president. And if you don't do it, the implicit threat is he will blackmail him. He may then come out and tell everything he knows. So I just find all this so fascinating because another thing it shows, when we hear things in the media, when somebody comes out, a high profile person, and they say something, right? We don't realize how often all this stuff is really planned, and they've talked about it and they've strategized over it with their people. It doesn't mean they control the world, because there's other groups of people doing the same thing. Everybody's strategizing. But look at this. Wolf is saying, look, stay quiet, don't say anything, and then Trump is indebted to you. You can blackmail him later. Or say something and you come out looking like a good guy, you destroy Trump, and you come out looking like a good guy because handed over a bad guy. So I don't know. As I read this, I- I'm really trying to figure out what was Wolf's real motivation here because he sounds like, "Hey, Jeffrey, we're pals. I'm trying to help you out, buddy." Why would he be trying to help out a pedophile? Why was he so close to a pedophile? Could we say he was associated with that? I personally don't think so, but I could see where people would ask the question. Sure, see that. On the other hand, the other possibility is, and this is the possibility I lean toward, is that he really didn't like Trump. He really saw that Trump was going to be a danger to America, and he was doing everything he could to stop him. So he cozied up to Epstein. He made Epstein think that he was pulling for him, he was on Epstein's side, so he could then manipulate and kind of control Epstein to get Epstein to do what he wanted him to do, which I think eventually was to expose Trump for what he had done. So that's my two theories. What do you think? Do you think he was actually genuinely, sincerely a friend of Epstein's, or do you think he was trying to manipulate Epstein? And what do you think? Um, is Trump going to go after him now? I don't see how he can't, but maybe he won't. What do you guys think? Leave a comment below. I'd really love to hear your opinions on this. So let me know, and I will talk to you next time. Just wanted to get that out and hear what your thoughts are about it. Okay. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.